John, you told me earlier that the moment you realized something was really wrong did not happen in a doctor's office.
It happened right in your own kitchen. And it happened right after you ate what you thought was the healthiest meal of the day.
That is exactly right. I was actually eating this huge bowl of fresh fruit. I really thought I was doing my body a huge favor. But instead, I just felt completely exhausted and puffy afterward.
How many of us have been exactly there? You reach an age where you really try to do everything right. You choose the salad. You eat more fruit instead of having dessert. But you still get that awful afternoon energy crash. The weight around your middle just will not budge no matter what you try. You start to get this nagging feeling that your body just is not working with you anymore.
That feeling is incredibly common, especially for folks over 50. But I need people to know it is not a sign that you are failing. It is often just a sign that a hidden biological process is working against your efforts.
What if I told you that one of the habits you think is healthy might actually be making it harder for your body to manage blood sugar?
It sounds completely backwards, but science shows it is true.
Today, we are going to change the way you look at your daily routine. With the help of Dr. Eva and John's incredible personal story, we are uncovering 3 simple habit shifts. These are not restrictive diets or exhausting workouts. These are practical changes that can help you finally understand what is going on inside your body. Keep in mind, these are lifestyle adjustments meant to support your health, not replace medical advice from your doctor. Stay with us. We are going to help you get back in the driver's seat of your health. John, I want to take a step back for a moment. Before that shocking night in your kitchen, what did your daily life actually feel like? Were there subtle signs that you were just brushing off?
It was a really slow burn. I honestly just chalked it up to getting older. I figured everyone hits a wall at 3 in the afternoon.
Right, the famous afternoon slump.
Exactly. I thought needing a nap after lunch was just a normal part of being in my 50s. Then I would go in for my annual physical. My doctor would look at the charts and say my blood sugar was creeping up. He would always tell me, "We just need to keep an eye on it."
That phrase is so incredibly frustrating to hear.
It drove me crazy. I was keeping an eye on it. I stopped buying dessert at the grocery store. I completely switched over to whole wheat bread. I felt like I was doing everything by the book. But the scale would not move, and I was always so tired. It just felt like I was fighting a battle I could not even see.
That feeling of being totally powerless. I know millions of people watching right now are nodding their heads. They are putting in the work, but seeing absolutely zero results. Dr. Eva, why does this happen so often to people trying to do the right thing?
Because that is the true tragedy of prediabetes. It is a completely silent condition for a very long time. The damage inside your blood vessels is happening long before you ever get an official diagnosis. And people like John are not failing because they lack willpower.
What are they doing wrong then?
They are failing because the rules they were taught are actually outdated. Millions of Americans are trying incredibly hard to be healthy right now. Navigate their bodies.
Using the wrong map. That makes so much sense. So let us talk about that map. John, what was on your healthy map that ended up leading you in the exact wrong direction? Tell us what really happened that night in the kitchen. So John, take us right back to that night in your kitchen. What exactly were you eating that you thought was so incredibly healthy?
Well, my wife and I had started this new kick. We decided we just wanted to eat something really light for dinner. So we started having these huge bowls of mixed fresh fruit. I am talking about berries, melon, grapes, you name it.
That sounds completely harmless. Most people would applaud you for that choice.
That is exactly what I thought. I actually felt so virtuous eating it instead of a heavy meal. But that particular night, I just felt incredibly off afterward. I felt puffy, heavy, and just totally exhausted out of nowhere. I had recently bought one of those over-the-counter glucose monitors just out of pure curiosity. So I decided to test my blood sugar right then and there.
I can almost feel the tension. What did the monitor actually say?
The number was absolutely shocking. It was higher than it was after some of the big, heavy pasta dinners I had eaten in the past. I was so confused, and honestly, I was just angry. I felt like my own body was playing a cruel joke on me.
That is such a heavy realization to sit with. You do everything right, and you still get punished for it. Dr. Eva, I have to bring you in right here. What in the world was happening inside John's body? Why would a bowl of fruit cause such a massive blood sugar reaction?
This right here is the critical piece of the puzzle. The first thing I want to say to John and to anyone listening is that your body was not failing you. Your underlying strategy was failing.
Wow, that is a really powerful way to look at it.
It is the biological truth. What John experienced that night is a classic sign that his body was struggling with insulin resistance. I want everyone to think of this like a very simple mechanical issue. Imagine that your insulin is a key, and all of your cells, like your muscle and liver cells, are locked doors.
Okay, so insulin is the key and the cell is the door.
Exactly right. Normally, when you eat food, the sugar goes into your bloodstream. Then that insulin key is supposed to easily unlock the door to the cell. It opens the door so the sugar can go inside and be burned for energy. But when you have insulin resistance, that perfectly good key suddenly cannot open the door anymore.
And that is exactly what it felt like physically. It felt like the energy was just stuck out there with nowhere to go.
That is a perfect way to describe it, John. The sugar is literally locked out, so it has no choice but to build up and up in your bloodstream.
Okay, so we have the key and we have the lock. But in John's case, the key was just not working. What exactly was jamming the lock, doctor? All right, doctor, the suspense is killing us. What exactly is this gum that is jamming the lock on our cells?
To put it simply, the gum is excess fat. But it is not just the fat you can see on the outside. It is the microscopic fat stored right inside your liver and your muscle cells.
Wait, that does not make sense to me. I was eating fruit, not bacon or butter. How does fruit turn into fat inside my cells?
This is the part that shocks almost everyone, John. One of the fastest ways to create that sludge in the liver is by overloading it with a specific type of sugar called fructose.
Fructose, the sugar found in fruit?
Yes, exactly. You see, your body handles different sugars in very different ways. Glucose can be used for energy by almost every single cell in your body. But fructose is different. Even from too much fruit at once can tax the liver.
So the liver is like a specialized processing plant just for fructose.
Exactly. Now think about John's dinner. He ate a massive bowl of mixed fruit on a completely empty stomach. He sent a sudden flood of fructose straight to his liver all at once.
I thought I was being healthy, but I was actually overwhelming my liver.
Your liver did the only thing it could do with that massive overload. It converted that sugar directly into fat, specifically something called triglycerides. That fat then stays in the liver and eventually starts jamming the locks on your other cells.
So his healthy habit was actually contributing to the very issue he was trying to avoid.
It is a tough pill to swallow, but yes, I am not saying fruit is bad for you. But the dose and the context are what make the poison.
So what is the first big shift we need to make?
Habit number 1 is simple. Stop treating fruit as a free food. Especially do not eat large amounts of it by itself on an empty stomach.
That realization changed everything for me. I stopped the giant bowls of fruit and my energy levels started to stabilize almost immediately.
That is a total game changer for how we think about our snacks. So if our healthy food choices can be a problem, what about our exercise? Is there a better way to move to help ungum those locks?
There is, and it has everything to do with timing.
Okay, so we just learned that treating fruit like an all-you-can-eat buffet can actually backfire on us. That was a huge wake-up call. But Dr. Eva, you mentioned earlier that even our exercise habits might be a little misguided when it comes to blood sugar. Is there a specific way we should be moving our bodies to help ungum those locks?
There absolutely is. Most people think that you have to do a really hard, sweaty workout first thing in the morning to get results. But for blood sugar control, the timing of your movement is actually more powerful than the intensity.
The timing? So when is the best time to exercise then?
The most powerful thing you can do is what I call the 10-minute post-meal walk. Let me explain why this works so well. When you eat a meal, your blood sugar naturally rises. If you just sit there on the couch right after eating, your body has to rely completely on that struggling insulin key to clear the sugar.
And we already know that key is having a hard time getting into the lock.
Exactly. But here is the amazing part. When you move your muscles, especially the big muscles in your legs like your thighs, they have this incredible secret back door. They can literally pull sugar right out of your bloodstream to use for energy without needing insulin at all.
Wait, without insulin?
Completely bypassing the locked door. Of course, always listen to your body and consult your healthcare provider before starting any new physical routine, especially if you have joint or heart concerns.
I have to say, this was the very first thing I started doing after that bad night. Right after lunch or dinner, instead of sitting down to watch TV, I would just go walk around my neighborhood.
Were you walking fast? Like a power walk?
Not at all. It was just a regular, easy stroll for about 10 or 15 minutes. I wasn't sweating, I wasn't out of breath. But within just a few weeks, I felt different. That awful 3 p.m. crash I used to get, it just started to disappear.
That is just incredible. So it is really not about how hard you exercise. It is about when you exercise to support your body.
Precisely. You are using your muscles like a sponge to soak up that extra sugar right when it hits your bloodstream. It is a very simple habit, but biologically it is a massive shift.
I love how incredibly simple that is. No gym membership required, no special equipment. Just 10 minutes and a pair of shoes. Now we know how to handle fruit better, and we know exactly when to move our bodies. What about the meal itself, Dr. Eva? You mentioned a third habit change that can make a huge difference before we even take the very first bite. All right, Dr. Eva, we have the fruit down and the post-meal walk. But you mentioned a third habit change that happens before we even finish our meal. I am really curious about this one.
This next one is actually my favorite because it is honestly the easiest win of all. Think about how we usually eat. Most of us were taught to eat a little bit of everything at the same time. A bite of steak, a spoonful of mashed potatoes, and then some green beans.
Right, that just seems like a normal dinner plate.
It is normal, but for your blood sugar, it is not ideal. Habit number 3 is simply changing your eating order. You should always start with your vegetables and your protein first. Save the carbohydrates like rice, bread, or potatoes for the very end.
Just the order? Why does that matter if it all ends up in the same place anyway?
It matters tremendously because of the chemistry in your stomach. When you eat the fiber from the vegetables and the protein first, they create a kind of gel-like mesh. Think of it like a protective buffer lining your digestive system.
So it is like building a fence before the sugar arrives.
Exactly. When you finally eat your carbohydrates at the end, they have to get through that fiber buffer. This dramatically slows down how quickly the sugar hits your bloodstream. You're eating the exact same meal, just in a different sequence. It flattens the blood sugar curve into a gentle hill instead of a sharp mountain.
I have to tell you, this was the one I was most skeptical about at first. It just sounded too simple to be true.
How did it go once you actually tried it, John?
I can absolutely vouch for this. I started eating my salad and my chicken first. By the time I got to the rice at the end of the plate, I felt much fuller. I naturally found myself eating less of the starchy stuff. And the best part was that I did not feel deprived at all.
That is such a key word for anyone over 50. We do not want to feel like we are missing out on our favorite foods.
It did not feel like a diet. It just felt like I was being smarter about how I enjoyed my dinner.
It is incredible how these small strategic shifts can change everything. It is not about deprivation. It is really about intelligence.
Precisely. You are giving your body the tools to handle the sugar properly.
So, for the millions watching right now who might feel a bit overwhelmed by all this information, what is the most important mindset to adopt as they start this journey? How do we make this last for the long haul?
That is where we shift from the habits to the mindset of mastery.
Dr. Eva, these 3 habits are so practical and they make so much sense. But I want to speak to the person watching at home who feels like they have already let their health slide too far. Maybe they are in their 60s or 70s, and it just feels a bit daunting to start over. How do they even begin without feeling completely overwhelmed by the past?
I completely understand that feeling of being overwhelmed, and I see it in my clinic every single day. But the single most important thing anyone can do right now is to let go of the all-or-nothing mindset.
The all-or-nothing mindset. Is that the voice that says, if I eat one cookie, then the whole day is ruined?
Exactly. Most of us were raised to believe that health is like a test. You either pass or you fail. But this is not a strict diet, and it is certainly not a set of impossible rules. Your goal here is not perfection. Your goal is simply consistency and grace for yourself.
Consistency over perfection. I think we need to hear that a few more times.
Think of it like a GPS in your car. If you miss a turn, the GPS does not tell you to just drive off a cliff. It just calmly says rerouting and finds the next best path. If you have a piece of birthday cake, you are not failing. You just reroute by taking a 10-minute walk right after.
That GPS analogy is so powerful because I spent years driving off the cliff. I used to feel so much shame when I ate something I knew was bad for my blood sugar. I would literally hide the snack wrappers from my wife.
That shame can be such a heavy weight to carry.
It really was. But then I started to see food as information for my body instead of a judgment of my character. When I ate a big bowl of fruit and felt tired, I did not say I am a bad person. I just said, okay, my body is telling me that was too much fructose at once.
Food as information. That really changes the whole emotional conversation around eating.
It absolutely does. When you remove the guilt, you gain the power to make a better choice next time. John moved from being a victim of his biology to being a true partner with it.
I finally felt like I was the one in control for the first time in a decade. I stopped being afraid of my glucose monitor. It became a tool to help me understand what my body needed.
From victim to partner. That is such a profound shift in identity. It is not about fighting yourself anymore. It is about working together for a long and vibrant life.
That is the ultimate goal of everything we teach. We want people to realize that small, consistent actions lead to massive results over time.
Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to recap this powerful new roadmap. We want to make sure you have these 3 steps locked in your mind. Because you are the person in charge, starting with your very next choice. We have covered so much ground today. John, thank you for being so open about your journey.
It was my pleasure. I just hope it helps someone else feel less alone.
And Dr. Eva, thank you for making the science so clear for us.
You are very welcome. Remember, your body is always trying to work for you.
That really is the big takeaway today. Managing your health after 50 is less about struggling with willpower and more about using better wisdom. It is really about having better wisdom. It is about understanding that your body is not broken. It might just be responding to the wrong signals. By rethinking how you eat fruit and avoiding those fructose floods. By changing when you move your body with that simple 10-minute walk. And by simply shifting the order of the food on your plate. You are not just changing your habits. You are sending your body a completely new message. It is a message of partnership instead of a message of war. I want you to hear this very clearly. You are more than just a diagnosis or a set of numbers. You are the person in charge of your very next meal. You are in charge of your very next walk. And you are in charge of your next step toward a much healthier future. We hope this roadmap gives you the clarity you have been looking for. Thank you for joining us today. We will see you next time.